Next weekend is one of the great events of state in Great Britain, Trooping the Colour, otherwise known as the Sovereign's Birthday Parade, when the monarch's household troops pay their respects by marking the King's official birthday with a large military parade in central London. Each year, one of the 5 regiments of Foot Guards troops its colour, the colour being a special flag given to it by the Sovereign, and upon which are proudly emblazoned its battle honours. Here is last year's parade, with the colour of the 2nd Battalion Irish Guards being trooped. To the uninitiated, the Royal Guards all look the same, dressed in scarlet tunics and tall black bearskin helmets, but each regiment has its own particular histories and distinctions. For example, regarding uniforms, the pattern of buttons on the tunic, the embroidered regimental collar flashes, and a coloured helmet plume. The regiments are the Grenadier, Coldstream, Scots, Irish and Welsh Guards, and they rotate between public duties and active operations and overseas deployments, all of them being regular soldiers. However, alongside the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment, found of a squadron each of the Life Guards and the Blues and Royals, they form the Household Division, charged primarily with guarding the monarch's official residences in London and at Windsor Castle, and conducting ceremonial parades and events of state, one of the most important of which is Trooping the Colour. The British monarch is unusual in having 2 birthdays, their real birthday and an official one, the latter always in June to try and ensure good weather for military parades. In 1981 it was the turn of the 1st Battalion Welsh Guards, the Junior Guards Regiment formed in 1915 to parade their colour. The parade occurred on Saturday the 13th of June. Riding in the parade, as she had done for decades, and taking the salute was Queen Elizabeth II, Royal Colonel of the Welsh Guards. She rode her faithful horse Burmese, a 19-year-old presented to her by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in 1969. The Queen always rode Burmese for Trooping the Colour between 1969 and 1986. She was dressed in a unique female version of a colonel's uniform for the Welsh Guards, with her rank on the epaulets. Recently, as a guest of the 1st Battalion Irish Guards, I visited the Guards Museum at Wellington Barracks beside Buckingham Palace. They have one of the tunics worn by the Queen for Trooping the Colour on display. This example is for the Grenadier Guards, for the Welsh Guards uniform she wore in 1981 is very similar. Across her body was the sash of the Order of the Garter, with the Garter star pinned to her tunic, and above that her medals, 2 of which she had earned as an officer in the Auxiliary Territorial Service during World War II. The Queen rode side saddle. Atop her horse and escorted by other officers and men of the Household Division, she departed from Buckingham Palace, riding down the Mall to Horse Guards Parade, where the trooping of the Welsh Guards colour would occur in time-honoured fashion. The Queen firmly believed that it was very important to be seen by her subjects, and in her military finery atop the large black horse she was unmistakable to the thousands of people that lined the parade route. Everyone was happy and excited at the Queen's approach, all perhaps one man lurking behind one of the barriers lining the route. This man had evil intent in his heart and a desire to do harm to Her Majesty. That man's name, ironically, given the military nature of the parade, was Marcus Sargent. The Queen's insistence on being visible unfortunately also made her the perfect target. Sargent had been born in 1963 or 64 in Dover, Kent, and in 1981 was aged 17. He had been a member of cadet organizations in his youth and was very interested in firearms. Firstly as a Boy Scout, in 1978 he had then joined the Air Training Corps, the cadet part of the Royal Air Force, earning a marksman's badge for shooting excellence. He left school in 1980 with 7 O-levels and joined the Royal Marines. However, he left the Corps after only 3 months, claiming to have been bullied by training staff. Sargent next attempted to join the Army, but left after only 2 days. Still intent on a career in the uniformed services, he next applied to join the police, but was likewise rejected, the same happening when he tried to join the fire brigade. Living in Folkestone, Sargent worked at a zoo and then at an art centre before moving to Hawkinge, working in a youth centre. In October 1980, Sargent joined the anti-royalist movement and was unemployed, living with his mother while his father worked abroad. His father's Webley .455 revolver was at the house, and Sargent tried to obtain ammunition for it. He needed a firearms license, and so he joined a local gun club in Kent and practiced his shooting. Then he paid £66.90 to buy through a mail-order catalogue 2 blank-firing replica Colt Python revolvers, these types of weapons being unregulated in the 1980s. His behaviour also became increasingly erratic. He sent photographs of himself holding guns to magazines, including one of them holding his father's very real revolver. He then posted a letter to Buckingham Palace addressed directly to the Queen. It read, quote, "Your Majesty, don't go to the Trooping the Colour ceremony because there is an assassin set up to kill you, waiting just outside the palace." End quote. This letter only arrived at the palace 3 days after the shooting. Sargent was later described as a shy loner, haunted by failure. Now, the shy loner was set to enact a frightening attack on one of the world's most famous people for reasons that remain unclear. Sargent joined the crowds lining the Mall early on the 13th of June 1981. Around 6 feet tall, he was dressed in a check shirt and sported a Charles and Diana pin badge. Witnesses recalled that he spoke to no one in the hours of waiting. Sargent took position at the corner of the Mall and Horse Guards Road, where the parade would turn right into Horse Guards Parade. The Mall was lined with members of the Foot Guards regiments and police officers, and the nearest guardsman to Sargent was Lance Corporal Alec Galloway of the Scots Guards. As the Queen turned the corner, Sargent was only a few yards away, and as this photo shows, taken by a tourist who was standing behind Sargent, he raised his pistol, holding it with both hands in a trained shooter's stance, and then opened fire.
Field Marshal His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, Colonel of the Grenadier Guards.
Lance Corporal Galloway turned and grabbed Sargent by the hair as members of the public wrestled with the assassin, and police quickly piled in. Sargent was disarmed and dragged over the barrier into the street and arrested. The 6 blank shots startled the Queen and her horse.
Field Marshal His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, Colonel of the Grenadier Guards.
But being the consummate horsewoman, she soon regained control of her mount and continued with the parade. Even though at the time no one knew if the shots had been real, the Queen, though shaken up, never considered for a moment leaving the parade. She continued with her duty, riding resolutely on, recovering her composure. Looking again at this photograph, it is very clear that if Sargent had been able to obtain ammunition for his father's Webley .455 pistol, the Queen would have been in grave danger of being badly wounded or even killed by the fusillade of shots at such close range. As Sargent was being subdued, he shouted, "I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be a somebody." Now he would face the full wrath of the law for this affront to the Queen. Sargent was charged under the rarely invoked 1842 Treason Act, specifically under Section 2 that he, quote, willfully discharged at or near Her Majesty the Queen a gun with the intent to alarm or distress Her Majesty, end quote. Sargent stood trial on the 14th of September 1981, the judge being the Lord Chief Justice himself, Lord Lane. During his trial, Sargent explained that he had been inspired by the assassination of John Lennon in December 1980 and the attempted assassinations of President Ronald Reagan in March 1981, and most recently that of Pope John Paul II in May 1981. He said that he was impressed by how quickly Lennon's assassin, Mark Chapman, became world famous and desired the same media exposure for himself. When Reagan was shot, friends of his recalled that he said, "I would like to be the first one to take a pot shot at the Queen." A psychologist who examined Sargent before the trial found him to be sane, and therefore he knew that he was using a blank-firing pistol, so he probably did not intend to harm the Queen. Rather, it was a stunt made for the express purpose of gaining him fame. Be that as it may, Sargent was found guilty of the charges under the Treason Act, and Lord Lane sentenced him to 5 years' imprisonment. Sargent's lawyer appealed the length of the sentence, but the appeal was refused. Whilst in prison, Sargent wrote to the Queen apologising for shooting at her, but received no reply. After 3 years' imprisonment, Sargent was released in October 1984 at the age of 20. He changed his name and re-entered society. What he is up to today, I don't know. The Queen continued to ride annually at Trooping the Colour until 1986, when she began to travel instead by open carriage. The Queen's last appearance at Trooping the Colour was on the 2nd of June 2022, when the 1st Battalion Irish Guards trooped their colour. Too frail to attend Horse Guards parade, she took the salute from the balcony of Buckingham Palace. Her Majesty passed away at the age of 96 at Balmoral Castle in Scotland on the 8th of September 2022, after 70 years on the throne. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help to support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.